Hi everyone, welcome and thank you all for joining today's webinar on ACE, Your Pace of Creative Writing. My name is Ravali and I'm a part of team here at Turito. I'm joined here by today's speaker, Dr. Poonam Singh, one of the statutor at Turito, and Miss Apurva from Student Counselor Department. This webinar is an outreach program by Turito for students to help in developing their learning skills and for parents who are willing to give their children best education. Before we start off, let me give a quick overview of organization. And all you aware, Turito is an e-learning platform and our vision is to provide quality education to every student by well-experienced faculty. Currently, Turito is available in USA, Canada, Middle East, India, Singapore, and Australia regions. And programs offered by Turito are NAPLAN-OC and one-on-one tutoring services for math, science, and English subjects in Australia region. Turito exclusives are Turito offers interactive learning methods as per student requirement, regular assessments to track the child progress, and doubt clarification sessions for making concepts stronger. Turito also provide parent app apps to provide you a part of child's learning journey. Moreover, we have top 2% certified educators whom we partner with to envision our mission. Before getting into the specific, let me offer a quick intro about our speaker at today's event. Dr. Poonam Singh is a holder of PhD in Literature and Languages, and she is passionate educator with a vast experience of 8 years in education industry. She has facilitated students for competitive exams and extemporaneous spoken English. And really, we are glad to have ma'am here because she has many students from international regions. She has rich experience in teaching international students as well. Thank you, ma'am. Over to you.
Thank you so much for a warm welcome and welcome everyone to the wonderful webinar that is going to definitely enrich our learning and experience. So what are the major aspects that we going to talk about today is the creative writing, which is absolutely the most important part in writing section. And when it comes to literature and languages, we cannot move on apart from understanding what is it. And without this, English literature or language is incomplete. So what are we going to look in this session today? We'll be looking at introduction to the creative writing, how can we improve it, the different areas, and how or why it is important. So let's begin with what is creative writing. So as the name suggests, creative writing is a form of writing that goes beyond the traditional realms of normal, professional, and academic or technical forms of writing. Instead of that, it encompasses a number of different genres and styles across a whole range of fields of both fictional and non-fictional writing. That is like storytelling, playwriting, poetry, prose, journalistic, and more. Though the definition can be quite vague, creative writing can, for the most part, be considered as any type of writing that is original and expressive of oneself. So typically, it can be identified by an emphasis on a narrative craft, focusing on elements such as character development, narrative and plot, infusing its structure with imagination, invention, and story. So in this sense, if I could talk about what is creative writing further, creative writing can technically be considered any writing of contemporary, original composition. It's bound by no standard conventions and uses a whole range of elements in its craft. In academic setting, creative writing is typically divided into fiction, poetry, or script writing classes with a focus on writing in an original style, not defined by pre-existing structures and genres. So what are different types of creative writing that we are aware of? Creative writing comes in many forms, encompassing a number of genres and styles. There are a lot of different types of creative writing, for example, biographies, fiction like novels, novellas, short stories, etc., speeches, poetry and spoken word, playwriting, script writing, personal essays, speeches, and what makes a good piece of creative writing. Apart from these important areas, that first of all we have to understand what are we writing in creative. According to that, now what makes a good piece of creative writing? So first and foremost, it is important to note that there is no predefined description of what it means to create a good, let me say, a good piece of creative writing there. As the name itself suggests, creative writing is an imaginative process created by an individual with all their quirks and personalities. So it doesn't fit one set genres, or therefore there will never be an umbrella definition to describe the perfect piece. Just think about a gothic short story and then compare it with the features of a great romantic poem. The two are so very different. It wouldn't be unfair to judge them together. So, however, with that being said, there are few general principles that you can follow to make your creative writing as strong as it can be by making it as authentic and true to be yourself. So, what are those areas? Let's look into that. So how can we polish it? We can polish it by practice to sharpen words usage abilities, get feedback from your peers, experiments with ideas and languages, seek guidance from an expert. What I do knowing or by saying that. So first and foremost, we have to understand the audience. All great stories begin with the target audience in mind because it's exactly what you need to know in order to really tailor your writing and connect with them. Therefore, any creative writer should begin with the writing by plotting out exactly who they want to read their work. Once you have this in mind, your creative will naturally begin to take direction and flow in a way that seems appropriate to the audience. Write what you know. So, quite often, the best stories are those which we can connect to and relate in one or another way to our own lives. Or they are stories which seem so authentic that you could imagine it to be about the writer's own life. Now, this doesn't mean that you quite literally have to write about your life, but drawing on knowledge you have about different elements of life, of our life that is connected to us, to give into your story some authenticity and more believability. So, creativity is the key there. Creativity is one of the most important elements of creative writing. It's what sets you apart from other pieces of writing in your genre. Of course, this doesn't demand that you write a tale about a totally fantastical or mythical world with unique creatures, but simply use your creativity to think a little outside the box and put a unique twist on things using literary devices like metaphors, alliteration, personification, imagery, and varied sentences structure to make your work unique and interesting. Now, we have to also push our imagination. So, push your imagination. One of the great things about creative writing is that there is no definition or rules on how it is to be written. In such more subjective genres, one which relies heavily on your own interpretations. For example, if there is a guideline or some heading or some hints have been given, if and there are 10 students in the class, each and every student interpret that in a different way. So you should push your imagination to the limits to see what the end result could be. Some of the most interesting pieces of literature are thought-provoking or make us question the writing or world around us. Where could your story take us? Plot a loose story arc. That is something we have to remember. What do I mean by that? Despite the loose bounds of creative writing, it is still advisable to plot a loose story arc for in any piece of literature you create. Story arcs are critical at giving your writing direction and purpose, helping you to write the whole piece at a good pace without writing any superfluous content or waffle. Flow your story arc, and your writing will have a strong structure, pace, and direction, keeping your readers more engaged. Now let's look into the techniques that we have. What are the different techniques we should use? So select an idea, devise a plot, decide storylines and character traits, create scenarios under varied settings, take a break and resume working. Once fresh ideas enter, write again. Prepare the first draft and finalize it. Review and edit it after another break. So this is a kind of strategy we can follow whenever we write. But when we talk about the techniques, what are those? So the first and the important technique is the character development. Uh, this is also known as elements of fiction. So character development, the process of creating a well-rounded, realistic character with depth, personality, and clear goals or motivations. Plot development. Next point is the story of your piece of writing, how it develops, unfolds, and moves along in time. Next part is point of view. Now, most of the time, we have seen either the story has been told in first person point of view, like being I being a writer, I'm writing my own story, keeping myself as a character, or I am putting it onto the third person's point of view. So, point of view is the perspective from which the narrative is told. It indicates who is telling the story and how the information is conveyed to the readers. Quite often, writers will play with the point of view in the central character or protagonist to trick the reader and twist their perspective. So also, whenever we do write stories or whenever we come up to creative, what general mistake we do, we simply write it in a simple structural sentences. So we can add on to different writing styles, that is dialogue, poem, couplets at times. So another form could be dialogue there. Dialogue refers to the speech and conversations characters use to speak to one another. Dialogue and the language choices a character makes can be pivotal in helping define their personality. Then comes the literary devices. Literary devices are as important as, I could say, a dress, important to wear. So it gives the beauty to the writing, such as metaphors, simile, alliteration, onomatopoeia. Then we have personification, imagery. These all play so important role, and that makes our writing more imaginative and descriptive. These are used in a myriad of ways by writers to make their writing more vivid, interesting, and engaging. We can move on to the next part. Can creative writing be taught? Yeah, this is something that most of us have a question. So, of course, creative writing can be taught and is very popular subject in everywhere. It's not only related to the school. It will be helpful to in every field wherever you go. Those who pursue subject of creative writing will typically study a variety of texts from different periods of time to learn more about the different genres of writing within the field. They became familiar with some of the leading creative writers from generation past to present, as well as some lesser known and emerging writers in the industry. So we can say definitely we can teach the students and how to start creative writing. How can we start it? As we have already discussed the strategies. So it can be pumped up by read as much as you can, start generalizing or journaling, attend a creative writing summer, and that is also one thing, and practice using literary devices. And at the end, I could suggest one important thing is write, having imaginative ideas. Whatever comes in your mind, take a paper, do write it. And we can go to the next part. So why we should learn from Turito? That's the main question here. Because the way I've just explained most of the important areas of creative writing, here we always put emphasis on mindful learning instead of handful learning. Mindful suggests means whatever we are doing, if we don't have a conceptual or a very limited knowledge about it, things were taught in such a way, or topics are taught in such a way that it should be mindful. Children are able to understand what to write, in what context it is to be written. If I won't use such literary device, or for example, that particular technique, what I'm going to lose. So mindful learning is the most important part that we have here focused on. Here we provide insight to all the subjects, all the concepts, and those all experts who are here entered after rigorous training, and they are expertise on their own subjects. And as far as literature and English is concerned, they all are rich, full of rich experience. And here we provide personalized and interactive sessions. So it means we are not going to at all focus on lecture methods. It's all depend on the child's requirement and needs, and on the basis of which we are going to customize. So if, for example, the child to say that I don't even know what is creative writing, we can start from the beginning, from the scratch. Every pro, every con is to be taken with the logic. So interactive session means it's not just the conversation, just not on the talks, but here we are talking about letting the child open up on whichever way he or she should be, which he is not able to do in the regular schooling, at the regular schools. And that is where it is a wonderful platform that we provide, where child can have his or her own points of concern in front of the teacher. And we all make sure to answer those with the reasons, with the required resources required applied there. Moving on to the next one. What else do we here do? We make the children, we give the comprehensive material. We target on NAPLAN and OC. It means NAPLAN courses are available, OC courses are available, and there are certain students who go for NAPLAN courses in year 3, year 5, year 7, year 9. So we give them rigorous training, we give them rigorous practice with the logic behind all the concepts that they are going to cover in this span of session. And that also has been formulated. We give collaborative teaching of concepts. It means if I'm taking grammar, it doesn't mean that it is going to be just intact into grammar structural areas. It will be also taken into reading. It will also taken or connected in writing and spoken English. So let's talk about what we have discussed today. So creative writing is an expressive form of literature, one which demands you to use your own creativity, imagination, and story to portray a particular message, emotion, or plot. It defies the traditional bounds of other forms of writing and is completely subjective to our own preferences and experiences. So for those looking to get started with creative writing, that is the wonderful place where you can start. And it is important to really immerse yourself in the world of literature, reading and writing with us. Yeah, thank you so much from my end.
Thank you, ma'am, for the detailed explanation about the topic, ma'am. And let's move to Q&A session. And all the students and parents, please feel free to drop your questions at Q&A section. And we got some questions from participants, ma'am. Let's start Q&A session now. The first question is, what are some common mistakes that children make while writing an essay, and how to overcome those?
Yeah, so first and the foremost mistake they do is that they write their creative writing in simple sentences without knowing that there are different 4 types of sentences that we generally use, and they keep on writing their creative writing or whatever the topic for their writing into in just simple assertive or declarative sentence. So the first important mistake they do is not taking up all 4 different areas or different structures. Later, what they do is they don't use literary devices. The different techniques that we discussed in today's session all were missing, and because that is going to be very monotonous for the teacher to read, because that doesn't convey the feelings, the emotions, the description of what child is trying to convey. That is why we say that it is just an ordinary writing, and they don't reach to the point where we want them to.
Yeah, ma'am. The next question is, how can we make our writing style unique?
Writing style unique, yes. It is absolutely the same with that I discussed. When we know the audience, when we know the plot, it means when we know what are we going to deliver in our writing. And these literary devices, which we also can say figurative language, it plays an important and the foremost important part over there. We also don't use, I, I could say, adjectives in writing, though we are aware of them, but still we forget whenever it comes to writing. So if we keep these things in check, definitely we will improve.
Yeah, ma'am. Next question is, what are some basic rules to be followed while writing an essay?
These are, there are, we can call it as elements of fiction. So there are five important areas, or the points that we have to remember whenever we come to creative writing. Let's take an example of story writing, then narrative writing. So the plot, point of view, characters, setting, conflict, then comes up the theme. So these important things are certain, I could say, pointers that we want, that one should remember whenever comes to narrative writing. So it is just one example, and so on. If we move on to the other, we categorize them in their different areas too. Like for example, if it is a speech, it has its own format of writing. But what is the demand of that speech? That is also something that it's a question, or it's a part to discuss. So the example that I gave about writing, so that the way elements of fiction is to be remember, the certain format with the requirement of the concept, that is speech, is also to be taken in the time whenever we are writing it. And at school level also, when we go to give speech, what is to be used and what not to be, what language is to be spoken and what not to be, what pointers or what ideas we should portray in front of the students to the other, to the audience, that is something is important. So it depends topic to topic, depends content to content.
Yeah, ma'am. And the next question is, any suggestions on how to improve writing speed?
Writing speed, yes, we can limit ourselves. For example, if I'm not a very good if I'm not a fast writer, I could give myself at least an hour. Like I could target, I could fix my timing. I'll give myself an hour, then I'll write it. Then the next time when I'll start writing my story, I'll reduce the timing. So every time if I reduce by 10 minutes of definitely I'll be able to improve my writing skill, writing pace.
Yeah, ma'am. Next question, how do we make our essay stand out?
Sorry, I messed up the question there.
How do we make our essay stand out?
How do we make our essay stand out? Yes, every essay have different structure. Like for example, descriptive and discursive. For example, persuasive and argumentative. So when first of all we have to understand what is the point that are we going to discuss. If it is persuasive, how many paragraphs are required? So if at least I'm going to follow the structural deviation of that particular type, that is first important thing we have to remember. And to deliver the ideas, that is another. So I think to make your essay stand out of the class, out of the other people, what we can remember is the point we have discussed. Creative writing is all summing up with the figurative languages that comes up with the different types of structure of sentences. For example, uh, the types of sentences are four, that is declarative, exclamatory, interrogative, then comes imperative. These are the structured sentences. But when I talk about the type of writing the sentences, they are simple, compound, and complex. So if every time I'm just writing simple sentences, definitely I won't be making any changes, any improvement. It will be as simple as that as anyone else would have written. So if I would use compound sentences, if I could say complex sentences or complex compound sentences, definitely I'll be able to make my ace there, my point over. So keeping these certain areas, these points in mind, definitely they will improve.
And next question is, how can we introduce creative writing to students at a young age?
That's a very good question, and we can easily imbibe this from the very beginning of, let's, for example, grade 1 or 2. Whenever child expresses something, ask him to write it down. For example, whatever he observed in school. And also because adjectives is a very simple and a common topic that each and every child might have started learning from the very early age. So if we ask the child to write 3 sentences, 4 sentences as a beginner, it will definitely help the child to become a very amazing creative writer ahead in the future. So we can introduce like that.
Do we have to follow any particular structure while writing an essay? What elements should we cover in it?
Yeah, absolutely. Though I think a few minutes back I just discussed about different type of essays. Absolutely, we have certain particular structure. In persuasive writing, I cannot write argumentative text, and in argumentative text, I cannot write descriptions, descriptive, right? So I have to first of all understand what I'm writing. Am I trying to persuade someone over my point of view? Am I trying to objectify my point of view on certain topic? So first of all, we need to understand what is the question, what is it taking us to, and afterwards the elements is to be put on. Just a minute. Yeah. So I think when we be able to understand the requirement of that particular essay, then only the elements could be decided or could be taken up, because every essay has different structure, different pattern, and different way of presentation. So, and essays are all depending on the presentations and your imaginative uh, points. Like, for example, let me give you another example. There are certain essays which are factual, which talks about only the general issues. So in that, I cannot be as creative as I could be in my other form of writing, that is story or narrative. So keeping this in mind, we have to decide.
Yeah, ma'am. Next question. Any tips on how to make the content crisp and interesting for people to read?
Yes, more and more description, twist. Do not come to the point very directly. Putting up kind of course, the crisscross, could say directions. And if the plot, the most important thing is the plot in creative writing that makes the entire story or entire content very interesting. So if we know what are we presenting, for example, in movies also, if we see someone, let's say, die the very open scene, we always all get suspicious, or we get questions over it, like what had happened. We would have start thinking about it. So if I have to make my writing interesting, I have to come up with that. As if there was a question about essay as well, how to make it interesting there too, because there are different ways of writing. When we say in essays, if we started with hook or a rhetorical question, definitely the reader would start thinking, what are we pointing to? So these small and important things are so important in our writing that we always forget in involving. So to make it interesting, definitely the plot is the foremost and the important you could say factor that is to be remembered and worked upon.
Yeah, ma'am. The next question is, what is the basic difference between an article and an essay?
Yes, essays are of different ways. Article is definite at times, is just depending on reporting something. Essays can be generalized in terms of their usage, but articles can't be. Articles are a kind of, you can say, something that have happened, and that is objectifying the importance in the future, how it is going to be, and it is generalized. Moreover, it's not oriented, it's not audience targeted at times, but essays are. So essays always written on the audience based. So these are certain areas which actually make them different.
The next question, what are some techniques used in creative writing? Can it be taught?
Yes, for sure. As I've discussed in the today's session, there are multiple different techniques that we can use. reading books, and there, apart from that, figurative language, and the just now I talked about different types of structures of sentences, adjectives. These all can be definitely be used in creative writing, and yes, they are being taught. We definitely taught them, teach you here on this platform too.
And next, what type of work will we get over the year starting from year 3?
What type of work will we get over the years, starting from year 3? I am actually quite not getting the question. So, if you could just simply write what exactly you're trying to ask. Is it related to the difference in writing style? Like, for example, when we talk about grade 2 or year 2 students, they write their answers in simple sentences or one word, or let's say a phrase. When the child grows up and go to year 3, they are coming with the dense vocabulary, they come with the descriptions. So there introduced creative writing, a kind of, let's say, a picture has been shared with the student, and child is asked to write over that. That we can say picture composition. So composition has been some. It is something that we start in year 3, including the vocabulary and expressions.
Next question, ma'am. If one of our kids are an amazing writer but having trouble with words, will Turito help with that?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's just like pacing it up and refining the diamond. So we are here definitely doing it, and that is what our forte is. We have successfully, from a couple of years, proven our points there, where we have made amazing writers. I have seen children writing Shakespeare's narratives, in transforming them into poems. So, if a child can change, if a child can write Shakespeare's language into a poem, defining his narrative, I think that is something is achievable for everyone then. So, yes, we do.
Yeah, ma'am. Next question, like NAPLAN or OC or native or complex sentences, what type of sentence will be needed over the years?
Like NAPLAN and OC, if I could say, a narrative or a complex, NAPLAN is a course that actually takes up your vocabulary, that talks about your language conventions, that talks about your narrative skills, because they have three different set of papers, and they all test every possibility of the child. And when it comes to narratives or writing sections, definitely complex sentences or compound sentences are something that is to be used in it. Otherwise, it is going to be simple. Like, for example, if the child is in year 4 or 3, I'll be explaining him the simple sentences first. When gradually he'll be moving to higher grades, the most important part is to teach him complex and compound sentences. At least child should know how to connect the ideas. And if not, then the spoken, reading, writing, everywhere he's going to find problems. So I think these all are required not only on AC and NAPLAN, everywhere. But as if we are targeted to NAPLAN and OC, we have a rigorous practice over, and also we make sure that the child should understand all these areas as well.
Yeah, ma'am. Next question, what type of sentence will you teach?
Sorry, what type of sentences will you teach?
Sentences.
We will teach every different, each type of sentences. When you say complex, compound, simple, and complex compound again is one of the form. Complex compound one form, complex is the other, and there is the third form that is called compound complex. So it means we can add on 4 to 5 sentences together. So we teach all of them.
As of now, we are not getting any questions from participants, ma'am. So we'll be ending the session, ma'am. Thank you for detailed explanation about the topic and answering all the questions with patience, ma'am. We'll be having a webinar session in the coming week as well. We hope to see you all again. Until then, if you have any queries, please write to us at
Actually, ma'am, there is a question. I
hey@turito.com
think
for more info.
yeah, sorry for the interrupting. There is a question I think a parent or maybe a child has written. Shall Turito give my child challenges or assessment to achieve? It all depends on you. We have customized classes. So if you want your child is to be given challenged assessments, we will. And if you want child is to be worked upon from the very ground level, we also do that. Yeah.
Yeah, ma'am.
Now you can continue. We can finish up.
Yeah, fine, ma'am. No more questions to ask, ma'am. Here, I think it's fine to end. We'll be having a webinar session in the coming week as well. We hope to see you all again. Until then, if you have any queries, please write us at care@turito.com. For more info, please visit our website www.turito.com. Turito makes every student to learn mindful but not handful. For better learning and better results, join Turito. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
all.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, to have being so patient and be creative. Thank you so much.